A few years ago, a homeowner reached out to me. Their house had been on the market for several months with no offers. It was a hot market and they could not understand why their house hadn't sold. So I made an appointment, went over to their house, walked in the front door, and walked into the living room and immediately saw the reason why. Welcome back to my series, Design Mistakes When You're Getting Your Home Ready to Sell. And in this video, we're talking about the living room. And I'm going to go into detail on why this home seller's home was still sitting on the market piece by piece. We're going to talk about the 5 top reasons, top 5 mistakes that homeowners make when they're getting their house ready to sell. So we're going to get right to it with mistake number 1, and that is hanging your TV too high. Now, it is common to put televisions over fireplaces. I'm personally not a big fan of this, but that is a trend that I don't think is going away. But you can still do that and not make it look like an eyesore, not make it look like it's not supposed to be there. Now, why is this a mistake? Well, number 1, the reason is now the TV becomes the focal point of the room. And especially if you have a larger TV, it doesn't matter if you have beautiful hardwood floors. It doesn't matter if you have light, natural light coming in, or cathedral ceilings, or you have beautiful fireplace, a custom built fireplace. Their eyesight, their focal point is going right to that piece of electronics. And that is not what you want. Now, if the TV is hung too high, what it does is it throws the room off balance. It doesn't feel comfortable to the buyer, and it also makes the room feel smaller. So what can you do? Well, I'm not going to ask you to take the TV down because maybe that's not necessarily practical. But there are a few things, if you're about to purchase a TV, there are a couple things that you want to think about. And the first thing is you want to get the height right. Now, the height on a television is going to depend on a lot of factors. It's going to depend on the size of the TV. It's going to depend on the seating position, the layout, where the TV is actually located. Is it on a TV stand in an entertainment center or over the fireplace? Now, there are ways to figure this out. I'm going to include a link in the description that actually has a fill-in-the-blank formula. You can fill in all the information. It'll tell you exactly how high you should hang that TV. And then what I want you to do to shift the focal point away from that TV set is put a picture on the TV. Now, I don't want you to, please don't do this. Don't put a video of fireplace on the TV when it's mounted over a fireplace. Don't do that. Please don't do that. But what does look really nice is a picture of a window. If you have a picture of a window, say you're near the beach, and it has like the actual window panes, and as if you're looking out a window with a beach scene in the background, whatever is appropriate for your area, that looks really nice. It adds some depth to the room. But just a standard picture will do. Don't put a television program. Stay away from the music. You don't want to look like you're, trying too hard with extra decor, to stage the house. I think it's fine to not have music, playing in the background. But having a picture to distract people from that focal point is the way to go. Now, the other thing that you want to make sure that you don't do, and the mistake number 2, is hanging your artwork too high. Now, I can't count how many times I've walked into a living room with a buyer and it looks like the homeowner literally closed their eyes and hung up all the pictures on the walls, every which way, different heights, and then took a step back and said, yeah, that's good enough. Good enough for me. Well, it's not good enough for the buyers because for the same reasons that a buyer doesn't like a TV that's hung too high, that's the feeling that they get when they have pictures that are hung too high or not hung at the right height, period. They might be hung too low. A buyer, it's going to make the room feel smaller. It's going to be a super distraction, and it's going to create an uneasiness in the room itself. And I will tell you that, even if you have the most analytical checklist buyer, buyers will always buy by emotion. If the room doesn't feel right, they will have a hard time envisioning their own stuff in your house. And if they can't envision themselves living there, it's an uphill battle. So what can you do? What are the solutions? Well, the ideal height for a picture is 57 inches to the center. And if you're hanging multiple pictures on the wall, you start with the center. You start with the main picture first and then work your way out. Now, if you're hanging pictures over a piece of furniture, a sofa, love seat, typically you want to go 4 to 8 inches, 4 to 8 inches above the top of the sofa. That's typically where you want to be. Now, as a bonus tip, when you're hanging pictures, something that I do is I use painter's tape to mark the corners of the picture. So it'll allow you a couple different things. Number one, you can get that level, get that old level out. You should be using a level to make sure that that picture actually is being hung, where it should be. And then it also allows you to step back and see, does that look good on the wall? Do you need to shift it left, shift it right? And allows you to see where the other pictures are going. I think it's a great way to go so that you don't end up putting multiple holes in the walls, especially if you have a larger picture that requires 2 picture hooks. Now, mistake number 3 is going to be poor furniture layout. Now, I recently met with a client that had this exact challenge. They had too much furniture in their living room. And you know what? They were living there. This is what was good for them. And if you're not selling your house, then you do what makes you happy. Whatever arrangement works for you, that's what you should do. But we're not talking about that here. We're talking about trying to get the buyers to envision themselves living in your home. And if they cannot envision where their stuff would go, because you have the furniture arranged so that you have to walk around the furniture to get into the room, or the furniture is too big for the room, it makes the room feel smaller. It's hard for those buyers to imagine that they can fit their stuff in. And I've seen that happen, where if you look at the measurements support all of their furniture, but it's the feeling they got. It's psychologically, it's the perspective of what you're creating, in that room, that presentation that I always talk about. So what are the solutions? What can you do about it? Well, the first thing I want you to do is you want to create a clear traffic path. You want to have 30 to 36 inches of cleared space so buyers can move in and out of the room freely. And that might mean moving some furniture, taking some furniture out, which is exactly what my clients did. Actually removed some of that furniture. Now, I always tell my home sellers, you're selling anyways, which means you're going to have to move your stuff, which means, if you're going to put stuff into storage, now's a good time. If you have a basement, you can put it down there. I'd rather have extra furniture in a basement than in the living room, which is one of the first places that buyers will go to. But you want to clear up this area. You want to have easy access in and out. You also want to make sure you're not blocking any doors. You don't want to block any windows. If you have the TV in front of the window, because that's really the only good spot for the TV, you're going to have to move the television. The process of getting a house ready for the market means that you're transforming your home into a house on the market. Okay, well, Jen, what the heck does that mean? It means that it's going to be inconvenient. It's not going to be convenient to live into your house for a short period of time. You're going to be staging this house to its best possible presentation for the buyer. Why? So that you can get it sold quickly and get it sold at a good price. And blocking windows that blocks light or blocking doorways is not recommended. It is not recommended. So create a new focal point in the room that is not the TV. A conversation area is ideal so that buyers can see where their furniture can be positioned. Now, sometimes it's hard to envision. You've lived in your house for a while. You don't know how to go about doing this. You don't know where to start. Maybe you can't envision any other layout other than the layout you already have. And you don't want to hire an interior designer. You're putting your house on the market. You want to spend the money for that. So a great resource is a skilled real estate agent. Now, I always recommend reaching out and getting yourself in line with a good agent early. And when I say early, I have some folks that reach out to me for referrals a year before they're planning to sell their house, 6 months, 9 months before they'll actually put the house on the market. And the agents that I recommend anyways are the agents that are not going to pressure you into signing a listing contract before then. They're looking to build a relationship with you, and they will give you advice. They will walk through why, because typically the agents that I have in my network have 15 years, 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years experience. They've seen other houses. They may have some ideas that you haven't thought about yet. They may have some suggestions that you didn't think about. And temporary, presentation of that room to make it look in its best possible light. Now, I always recommend interviewing at least 3 agents. So if you have an agent you've used in the past, fantastic. I still recommend interviewing a couple more agents just to make sure that you're dealing with an agent that I call a 20% agent, not an 80% agent that maybe hasn't been doing it for very long, or maybe isn't as professional, as skilled as a more skilled agent, as an agent that actually puts your needs first. So if you want to be connected to one of those agents, let me know. There's a link in the description. I'll connect you with one of those agents. I'll reach out to you. I have some more questions to make sure I find the right agent for you. But dealing with and getting the help and support of an outside party to help get these ideas, to help you maybe see what you don't see, I think is indispensable. 100% indispensable. Now, moving on to mistake number 4, too much stuff. Now, the folks that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this video, they had too much stuff. They had some awesome antiques, turn of the century stuff. They had, it was pretty impressive, but it covered every square inch of the wall, and they had huge high cathedral ceilings, and it was covered, so much so that when they started to take it down, they had a wood stove in the room as well. You could see the outlines of everything on the wall. It was a distraction. It was a massive distraction. And that is going to be one of the biggest drawbacks of having too much stuff, too much clutter. One of the number one reasons why the first thing that you'll see on YouTube is declutter, declutter, declutter. It's because it hinders you in a big way of getting that house sold. And you know what? And sometimes I'll have folks say, well, my house was full of stuff and I still sold it. Yes. You know what? A turkey can fly in a hurricane. And if you want to wait and take a chance that you'll find the absolute one buyer that can thread the needle, that likes it exactly the way you do, by all means. All I'm trying to do here is open up your buyer pool. We're trying to appeal to as many people as possible. Why? So that we can increase your chances of getting it sold faster and for more money. That's the goal. That is absolutely the goal. Having too much clutter, it is a distraction, which is exactly the situation with those folks that I mentioned earlier. It was the first thing that I saw. I didn't see the massive cathedral ceilings. I didn't see the floor-to-ceiling windows, the real tall windows. I didn't see the TV even that was blocking the windows. I didn't see the open to the country kitchen. I didn't notice it. It was the first thing that I saw because where my eyes were drawn. The other thing is the room felt very small. It felt very small because of all the stuff. And that is going to be, again, with the reoccurring theme, it's going to be one of the reasons why you want to take care of that before you put it on the market. Because buyers will have a hard time seeing that. It'll be a major distraction. They'll have a hard time seeing their pictures on the walls. And the reality of it is once you take that stuff down, again, the whole wall needed to be painted. Buyers see that stuff. They absolutely see that stuff. So what are the solutions? Well, you can figure that out. Start packing. And again, I always advise sellers, you know what? I know this is hard. I know it's your stuff. I know it's personal. I know some of these things have been on your wall potentially 20 years plus, and they're treasures. But you got to move. And if you're putting your house on the market, that's the goal. And not waiting until the very last minute to pack is a great thing. So if you got to pack anyways, you might as well start now. And it'll ease the burden of packing after you get a buyer and also have some benefit along the way. Now, a couple other things that I would pay attention to are cords. And we live in a technology age. There are cords for everything. There's charging cords and TV cords and cable box cords and doodad cords and gadget cords, and there's cords everywhere. And that stuff is distracting. And even if you have blank walls, you have or minimalist, a decor, but you have all these cords that are hanging out or a power strip, neaten that stuff up. Zip ties are your friend. I actually like to use Velcro ties. And they're not as permanent as zip ties, and it's easy for uncoiling and coiling the back up and use the Velcro. I have a ton of those, and they work really well. But taking the time to clean that up, tuck it under, a cabinet or behind a sofa or whatever, just to clean that up, makes a huge difference. And then mistake number 5 is choosing the wrong decor. And I'm talking area rugs that are too small, that look odd for the size of the room, area rugs that are too large, that are shifted off to the side when they maybe should be centered. Or maybe you have too many area rugs that cover every square inch of the floor. I saw this the other day. Walked into a house, and the sad part about it is you couldn't even see the beautiful hardwood floors that were underneath those area rugs. The other thing that is a huge mistake is having mismatched lighting. If you have 2 different lights that are on different Kelvin scales, you have one on warm light, one a cool light, those 2 Kelvin scales will actually conflict. It'll make the buyer uneasy. The other thing is that word art, and I am sorry if you have this in your house, and this is, I'm just dealing the truth, laying a truth bomb on you. The word art ship has sailed. Take it down. You may love it. That's fine. Put it in your next house. Take it down. It is something that actually dates the house because it's a trend that you don't see that much. And the fact that if it's a big piece of artwork, you guessed it, it distracts the buyers. These are all little things that into itself, not a big deal, but combined does become a big deal. So what are the solutions? Well, the first thing is if you need area rugs, you may not even need area rugs. Now, if you have animals, and this is what I run into a lot, if you have animals and the area rugs is the reason why you have area rugs is because you want to protect it from the animals, then what I would recommend is you have it on a temporary basis. Maybe have a few small area rugs that you put out that can be rolled up for when you have showings. But if you absolutely need an area rug, or maybe your hardwood floors, your floors are not a focal point of the room, choose an area rug that fits the room size, but also complements it on the decor. Make sure that the colors complement all of your other furnishings. You know, if you have gray walls, and you know what, if you have gray walls, that's fine. You know, if you like that, I am not gonna chastise you. There's a lot of negativity around gray walls, and I mean, I don't necessarily think you should. You know, the gray wall trend is kind of stale, but if you like it, then that's okay. That's all right. But if you have gray walls and white trim and a painted white mantle, you might need some color. You might need a little bit of splash of color to bring it all together, to give that room less of a sterile feeling. So choose the right color. Now, on the lamps are typically easy to fix. You just need to buy complementary bulbs. Now, I would highly recommend, and I'm going to show a picture here of the different Kelvin scale. You want to buy warm light. You want to buy when you're out at Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever big box stores buying light bulbs, try to get the same light temperature, and you want to go towards the warmer side. Going to the cooler side does make it a little bit brighter, but that it has a blue tint to it, and it does make the room feel less inviting. So having a warm Kelvin scale does help. And then finally, if you have word art, replace it with something else, get something inexpensive, or maybe reposition. Maybe you have artwork that is over here that can be moved, or another room or whatnot that you can put in its place that makes more sense, that kind of blends in to the background. You don't want it to be the focal point of the room. Now, as a bonus, I'm going to tell you about the one thing that every single home seller needs to do that will have the single biggest impact on helping you get that house sold, and that is clean, clean, clean. You're like, oh, I wanted something easier, Jen. No, I'm sorry to tell you. You got to clean the windows. You got to clean the floors. You got to wipe down the molding, your baseboards. You got to clean the cabinets. If you have wood cabinets, get some Murphy's oil soap. Really scrub those suckers. Get all of the grease, the cooking grease off. Get down on your hands and knees. Get the corners. Clean, clean, clean. That speaks volumes, because a house that is not clean, a house that has some of the hominess, let's just call it, buyers pick up on that. And sometimes they will construe that, they'll misinterpret that as a home that's not maintained, which may not be the case at all. Now, all of these 5 things, again, they are subjective. And if there's something that you're like, I'm not doing that, Jen, then don't. then don't. But if you want to try to get in front of as many buyers as possible, if you want to try to have the best presentation, do what you can. Because anything done during the preparation period, during that time period before the sign goes in the ground, that will have a direct impact on what happens after you put the sign in the ground. If you want more videos, you want to see my other design videos, you can check them out here. I'm Jen Sylvester. I'm here to help you be a savvy home seller.